They called him the Diesel.
Crank up that diesel. Let's go.
He leaned across the table and he goes, "You need to get me back there. I'll make you famous."
And to Riggins, good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.
It's Riggo the Diesel.
Hello and welcome to Riggo the Diesel. I am that guy, John Riggins. Sitting in with me as always is Larry Michael, the voice of your Washington Redskins.
Hello.
This is season 2, episode 30, and or if you count that way, it's show number 70, Larry.
Show 70.
Show 70.
In honor of Sam Huff.
In honor of Sam Huff. Yeah, hey, Sam must be getting along all right. I mean, he's been gone out of the public eye for quite some time. And Todd and I were talking. By the way, I have to say, there's a little moment of silence for no peanut gallery today. Todd is in Fort Lauderdale.
Todd
the T-Cat is down there playing golf.
He's playing golf, which
with a bunch of crew that you'd already are
my
quite
buddies
familiar
too.
with.
Yeah, good guys. And Sam, Sam's out there in Middleburg, and he's got his horses and his dogs, and he is in retirement.
Living the life.
And don't see much of Sam these days, but what a guy. What a guy. Maybe the most famous football player. Definitely the most famous football player out of West Virginia, right?
There was a time when I think, of course, growing up in Kansas and only getting CBS, which was, for us, it was Channel 2. I'm trying to think back that the violent world of Sam Huff.
Yes.
And I don't remember who recorded that or what.
Walter Cronkite. CBS. It might have been Edward R. Murrow. I
don't know. I'm thinking what might have been Cronkite. But either way, I mean, Sam Huff, because I didn't really even know the National Football League existed. Obviously, Major League Baseball, but Sam Huff was the guy. It was the violent world of Sam Huff. Everybody wanted to be Sam Huff. So Sam had a pretty good run. There's no question about that.
Hall of Famer.
Speaking of good runs, I am going to be a guest tonight at I don't know which one this would be, but it's the USO Metro Gala that they have every year.
Oh.
It's down at the Ritz-Carlton in Washington, D.C. And headlining is Terry Bradshaw.
He's so funny.
And then
well, you've seen him before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know Terry. And then underneath him is Rob Gronkowski. They've got Gronk down there as well. And they were down in Quantico yesterday, and there's a funny piece. I don't know, because, Terry's got a new, and I'm kind of doing a little promo for him, not really meaning to, and I think it's on the E! Network, but he's got a new, reality show with, I think it's called The Bradshaw Bunch. I don't think it's aired yet, but
that sounds interesting to me.
And anyway, they had a funny clip on there. Now Terry, if you wouldn't have seen him because you're always in the booth at that time, so you never get to see the pregame shows. But Terry has extended his girth a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I feel that.
So he's married to his fourth wife, I think, and then he has a daughter, and then she has two daughters. They're all blonde, so they got three of his blonde daughters with him, and there's Terry. And he's got his mustache and goatee. And they got this sergeant down at Quantico, Marine sergeant. He's got to be, if he isn't, then he used to be a drill instructor. And he's putting Terry through basically like, that Full Metal Jacket where the guy walks through the barracks and he's just reaming everybody. Earl Remy, I think it's not, what Earl, but anyway. It's a funny clip. So it should be interesting tonight. I will say hi to Larry. Is there anything, I will say hi to Terry. Is there anything that you've always wondered that I can ask Terry and then I can report back to you?
Well, met him at the Burgundy and Gold one year. He was there as a speaker, and he was so funny. I mean, he went on and on. He offended some people, but I didn't offend me. He had some jokes he told. But the big question I want to know is, did that ball, after it hit that Oakland Raider, after it ricocheted, did that ball touch the ground, or did Franco Harris pluck that out of the air? Was the immaculate reception really immaculate? Because that is
was the ball in his hands touching at the same time?
Supposedly that ball, I mean, if you talk to the Raiders, they'll say that ball touched the ground and he didn't catch it. Now, there is not a single video to this day that shows whether the ball was cleanly caught off that ricochet. Franco took it right off the turf. He says it didn't touch the turf. The Raiders say it did. And the rest, of course, is history. Most famous play in NFL history, as they did in the last year, the Centennial. They voted that play. Now, I would have voted the John Riggins touchdown run in the Super Bowl as the greatest play in Redskins history or NFL history. But anyway, That's what I'd ask Terry Bradshaw.
You know what's funny though is, let's just say that this is kind of like the ball and the runner getting to first base at the same time. If in fact he has his hands on the ball at the same time it's touching the ground, is that a catch?
No,
it's not.
I don't think it is. Maybe nowadays, who knows what a catch is?
What's that?
I don't know what is the deal now.
There has to be some space underneath that ball when you actually.
I think so. I think if the ball touched, then he trapped it. Right? It's called trapping the ball. So if the ground hadn't been there, he might not have caught it. But no one will ever know.
No, it's funny. The Raiders have two plays like that. The tuck up in New England many years ago, which makes you wonder to a certain extent if they call that a fumble. I got to believe the Raiders win that game. I never forget that at the Hall of Fame, Al Davis was still talking about that play.
People still pissed.
That was like 10 years later.
They are still pissed.
Yeah, this is in 2002, and Al Davis is 2 years later, and he was
to
still,
this day.
Well,
but you know what?
They wouldn't be Raider fans if they weren't a little upset, right?
No, and of course you guys played the Raiders in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, we'll move on to something else, Larry.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll move on to this. I want to hit you up here real quick because we're getting close to free agency.
Yeah, that's just a few days away.
We have a detailed rundown by TC. He left us such a detailed rundown, I could barely follow it all.
I've got it right here. It's about 3 sentences, I think.
But the question to you, sir, and then we'll take a break, but take as long as you want. Trent Williams reportedly has been given the opportunity to shop himself. So what price do you make that deal? How do you think this is going to unfold?
You know, it's funny because I was just listening this morning to one of the radio shows, and I'm aware of some of the stuff that's going on. I just recently learned, though, that the rumor out there that's being reported is that Trent Williams is seeking quarterback money. Like north of $20 million a year. But if your quarterback money, I also heard in the same report that the mean average or the top 10 salaries of the quarterbacks, the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL averages out to about $30-some million a year. Now, I don't know if that's that kind of quarterback money. I mean, when you say it's kind of a flabby term in some respects, but let's face it, it's got to be somewhere, well, it's got to be above $20 million, which I think is a couple of $1 million more if we started at $20 million, because I think $18 million is kind of the going rate for a left tackle. I mean, in other words, if you average out the highest salary, or maybe that is the highest salary for a left tackle. But there's a lot of things at play here, because also in this report I heard is that that may be the price to come back to Washington. In other words, he wants a little vig for whatever problem he had with the organization 2 years ago with the health issues. That may not be the same price that he would seek going to another team. Have you heard any of this stuff?
Haven't heard that.
In other words, there may be like a sliding scale here for Washington's X, which makes no sense because if I'm Washington, obviously, I'm saying, Trent, really appreciate everything you've done, but you want more from me than you want from the other guys out there on the street. I don't know. I mean, that would be me if I were doing it, and I guess that's the question you asked me. But here's the thing, injuries. He's got a history now in the last few years that he's played of being injury prone. And also he didn't play last year, which means he's a year older and he's been out of the game it'll be well over a year, be 18, 19 months by the time he actually plays his first game in September. It would be about 20 months since he'd played. You don't really know for sure what you're getting. And let me say this about Trent Williams. I think he's probably one of the best athletes that's ever played that position. Offensive tackle. And we can go ahead and refine it even more and say left tackle. I've seen the stuff he can do. He's got great feet on him. He's almost like a dancer. He looks like he could be on Broadway. But there's something about Trent Williams that if I had to pick between him and Joe Jacoby, and I know I'm being biased here, but I'm also trying to be objective, there wouldn't be one hesitation in my mind. And now the other thing that you have to factor in is I haven't played for 35 years. It's a different football game. And what possibly is required of an offensive tackle today as what was required of an offensive tackle back 35 years ago when Joe played could be two different quantities, really. Because everybody plays so high now, and Trent, being such a great athlete, he's able to position block people, which is great, but it's finesse football. It's not, Joe Bugle would not be impressed, I have to believe. And when it comes down to the one thing that you gauge your offensive line by, is the nitty gritty, the tough stuff down in the mud and the blood and the beer. And if he really is that dominant tackle that needs quarterback money to be able to play this game, you should be able to line up and run behind him when it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and you feel like we got a 75 to 90% chance of making this every time. It's like money in the bank when you got a 3rd and 1, you got Trent Williams. So my point is he's a gifted athlete. I can't take that away from him. But as far as being a dominating, but then again, maybe that's not the way the game is played today. So to me, if I'm Washington, I'm looking to try to find some kind of a deal where he can be traded. And obviously, they're saying go out and make yourself a deal, and we'll see what we can get back for you. Because I almost think too, based on what you hear and what you feel after a certain point, that he has misgivings about this organization at some point because of what's happened in the past. And in his mind, and I suppose that would be in most people's mind, as it is in any situation when you get into legal things, is, well, we can compensate you by paying you more money. I'll feel better about it. We'll all make nice. But I really think they're at a point where he has to, it's time for him just to move on, go to another team, and Washington get what they can out of him and start building from there. Because he's on the tail end. I mean, he's got a couple more years. Maybe he can play, 3 or 4. But I think his play is going to start to fall off. I don't think he's, on the rise. Now, I wouldn't say that if you're watching and say, oh, now the guy's great. He looks great. He's doing all the things he could do before, because you want to get a first-round draft pick for him instead of a second.
But your point is, to get that kind of money, he needs to be a dominating presence. And
yes, I think so. I don't think that but this team, while he's been here, has never really been, in the playoffs and gone. Meaningful playoffs.
Short yardage hadn't been the case.
No, clearly.
All right, whether on the field or in the classroom, the Redskins believe learning should be fun. That's why we partner with youth entrepreneurs to bring their engaging, hands-on style of learning to classrooms in the D.C. metro area. Youth Entrepreneurs curriculum was created by educators for educators. That means it's flexible, fun, and absolutely free. To learn more about Youth Entrepreneurs and how to experience it for yourself, visit getye.org.
All right, well, it's that time of year when you might want to be thinking about your plumbing. Maybe not. Maybe you've just had a problem. But let me do you a favor and tell you all about O'Connor Plumbing. They're here for you. They have extended hours through the week, and they also on the weekend. And when they get into their extended hours, to a certain extent, there's a point there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's no overtime charge. Anyway, 1-833-RIGGO-44. Give O'Connor Plumbing a call if you have any issues at all, and just ask them. They'll come out and give you a free 44-point checkup, tell you what you need. If you need something and you want it, they'll do it. If you don't, they'll go on about their business.
It's a 44-point check?
44.
Is that just a coincidence?
What's that?
Is that just a coincidence?
I think they had to stretch that a little bit to get the 44 points. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, 44 points down there and with pipes going together?
Well, you never know.
If you say so.
Complicated work.
Well, maybe by the time you add up every room, they get to 44.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand back and watch the Phoenix rise from the ashes.
Stand back. It's Riggo the Diesel.
I just noticed you guys, you're not standing far enough back. You got to get back just a little further because, this is the Phoenix now.
Was it last week I wasn't here? Last week I wasn't here. You had Mosley here. And yes. I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous week, but Deontay Wilder, the former heavyweight champ, used that expression when describing what's going to happen. He lost to Tyson Fury, and he says, watch the Phoenix rise from the ashes. I said, maybe he listens to Riggo the Diesel. Maybe that's where he got that.
Well, I stole it from somebody, obviously. And I think, as you astutely pointed out, I don't believe the Phoenix actually rises from the ashes.
From the flames, though. It rises from the flames.
Yes, exactly. The ashes are left behind. Rise from the flames. Actually, I like rises from the flames better. So, Josh Norman off to Buffalo.
Josh Norman off to Buffalo. No shocker. Some people are shocked that he received $6 million, but I'm not.
I'm one of them.
You're shocked, but you know what? They're probably expecting him to start.
Well, I would think so, for that kind of money. But, and then you think, but he's from the South. I wonder if he's going to be able to adjust playing up in Buffalo. That's a whole other ballgame. Plus, I think he's on turf up there.
It's awful, turf. It's awful cold up there in the winter now.
Cold snow.
Yeah, I mean that's Buffalo's a different breed of cold.
And I thought now, you did every game, and I watched every game, and as you did, but I thought really that his play slipped some this past year more than others, and I always kind of felt like for the money that he received.
That's
once
the
again,
big
we
point.
talk about
That's the
dominant.
point that everybody criticizes. I think the guy trains like a maniac. I think he's a diverse personality. He's really involved in a lot of things. I think he's probably eyeing his post-playing career and what he might be able to do. I really like the guy personally. As a player, there's the thought that, they didn't have him in the right scheme or that they didn't play him the right way. Well, the defense was rated 32nd in a lot of categories, and he was one of the main guys on the defense. Mm-hmm. So all the defensive players are a part of that. The whole team is a part of that. And you weren't going to continue to pay him the same salary he was making. And while he did have familiarity with Ron Rivera, he also has familiarity with Sean McDermott, who's the head coach, was the defensive coordinator under Ron Rivera at Carolina. Correct. That might have played into it a little bit.
Well, that always plays into it, I think, Larry, because usually when you have coaches that go to different teams, in other words, or a new coach is starting out or a coach that's been a coach for a while and he changes teams. And it's true in business. I mean, you ever notice when some company buys out another company, usually it's, it's like what they call Bloody Monday because they let all the executives go, replace them with new people. And I think when you look at a football, well, if you're a football coach, you want to know exactly what somebody's going to give you, so that you can count on that. There's too much. When you got to go out there and spend a season or so evaluating your talent, you prefer not to do that. So you like to have guys that you can count on right out of the blocks. And I'm thinking that's one of the well, and that isn't true necessarily in Buffalo because McDermott's been there for a while. But maybe if this year doesn't go the way it's supposed to, he may not be there for a while. Longer.
I've asked Coach Rivera this, and he answers it frequently the same way, all the time, I should say. Not frequently, is talk about his staff. He wants people around him that know what he expects. He said that several times, and that goes back to your management. You bring a new manager in, you bring a new boss in. He's going to want people there who know what he expects out of them as employees and also as football players in this regard. So I think Josh might feel comfortable with McDermott as the coach because he knows how the coach coaches. The coach knows what to expect out of Josh. Obviously, the variable here is where he is in his career, the tenure he's had.
What year is it? Is 10 years? Is that
gosh, he's been around for a long time. I still think the guy trains like a maniac. This guy trains in a weighted vest. I've seen what the guy does, and I still think he's got something left. But again, it's a matter of what the value is. And this is a team here that's going young, and with free agency coming up next week, what do you expect to see, John Riggins, next week here? Free agency starts next week. There's a lot of positions in need on the football team, and the Redskins have built a pretty nice war chest. And if they do have the opportunity to trade Trent Williams, that's off their books. He's off their books, which means even more money added to the cap. What are some of the positions you're looking maybe they fill next week?
Well, I think there's the one glaring position right now that I can think of, because defensively I think, okay, it needs a little bit of work, but I don't think it's anything that's glaring right now. I mean, they can keep adding on to it, but I think you got to look at the offensive side of the ball. And I think you found yourself, you've got in McLaren, you've got a number one wide receiver now. I mean, this guy I think is going to be top of the class year in and year out, certainly if last fall was any indication. And I think that the obvious position to me is, well, there's two, but one more than the other, I think is tight end. I think that because that's a position when you think about it. And this is when actually you go way back and you kind of can see where Belichick kind of had a moment of genius there. He started to corner the market on the tight end position when I didn't realize this. But Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski were both of them drafted in the same year.
Yes.
And I think that actually Hernandez was a little bit more of the better-known tight end, and I don't know, maybe they would have dealt one at some point if they had two that were that good, or maybe they were looking at that position to think that they can, kind of change the way offenses go about, playing the game.
Tough to guard two guys like that.
What's that?
Tough to guard two guys like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm thinking that tight end is clearly a position, with Vernon Davis, he's retired now, and I don't know, Jordan Reed, another guy you really can't count on game in and game out. You got to move on eventually at some point, and I think that's probably what the team is ready to do.
They have.
He's got to make a decision.
You might have been out of town on one of your many vacations, but they let him go.
Oh, they did.
They released him.
Oh,
a few
okay, I
weeks
didn't
ago.
know that.
Yeah,
that kind of went under the.
But it was expected, and again, it's more money to the cap. So this team has done a good job of getting younger and increasing their cap space. Corner's a position, obviously, I think they might go in free agency as well.
Yeah, that's another position.
But it's going to hit the fan next week.
And the
We'll
other
see.
position, which I don't think they will, but you got to look at you got the kid that's coming off Love. Is that his name? The
Bryce Love.
Bryce Love
Yes.
coming off. He's running back.
Yep.
You got Adrian running back, and of course you got Deuce in Geis. I mean, so I don't. Darius, what do you got here? You got. So I would say running back and tight end are positions to look at. Cornerback obviously has another one. So
There you go. Hey,
that would be my guess.
if you're looking for another chance to win, the $100,000 scratcher replay for the Virginia Lottery is exactly that. Now through March 31, any non-winning Virginia Lottery scratcher offers a shot at winning $500 in a daily drawing or even $10,000 grand prize. Here's the lowdown. If you've got a non-winning Virginia Lottery scratcher, you can enter into a daily drawing. Daily drawing, 2 players win $500. And every entry into the daily drawing is automatically entered into the grand prize drawing, which is set for April 7th, where one lucky winner gets $10,000. The fun doesn't stop if you don't win on your scratcher. Just replay it with a $100,000 scratcher replay. Visit valottery.com/replay for more information. The odds of winning a prize in this scratcher replay promotion depends on the number of entries received. Did you know your Washington Redskins are sponsored by Koch Industries? That's Koch, Koch. Their 67,000 U.S. employees make a lot of things that make game day better. Greener turf, they make that. Stronger paper products, they make that too. Oh yes, electronic components in TVs and smart devices, so you can watch your Redskins. Yeah, Koch makes that too. See all they make for on and off the field at kochmakesthat.com. And don't forget, stay up to the minute with all the Redskins news this offseason. Download the official Redskins mobile app.
Riggins. He's going to go all the way unless Blackwood can catch him, and he can't.
They left the scoreboard up. I remember seeing Redskins 27, Dolphins 17. And it was that moment of truth where I went, damn, I'm a world champion.
John, when he walked, he had a little bop to him. And besides that, he had the booty out there. They nicknamed him Chocolate Chip.
Storytime with Riggo.
Oh, Joe Namath. He said it just the way it was. I was just thinking here. There's been, I think, the governor of Virginia is going to introduce into legislation next week or at some point in time to okay a new stadium in Virginia for the Redskins and basically to legalize gambling. Do you know what? May I ask you what you know about this? And I know you may know and you can't tell. So.
Well, I would tell you if I knew and couldn't say so. I do that every day on the TV show. I do not know. I do not know.
But are you aware, though, that Virginia may be paving the way for...
Well, they better. I mean, they're so far behind all the other states. They don't have legalized gambling in the state of Virginia. And so I know that a lot of folks travel up to West Virginia or travel over to Maryland or, there's a lot of options. And I live in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I know the Virginia Lottery has been a big supporter of putting money back into the educational system in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So... yeah, I think they're behind, and hopefully they get something done soon. And then as far as the stadium's concerned, I've been hearing discussions about a stadium for how many years now?
Yeah.
So ultimately, a stadium would be built. I guess you could just say stay tuned along the way. There's so much that has to get done. It doesn't sound like an easy proposition to get that approved or to get everything right. I do know that the fan base would love a new stadium, and I think that any of the 3 jurisdictions would be great. I wish they could build it right there in McLean, Virginia, to be honest with you. That'd be a great place for it.
Right in your backyard.
right in my backyard.
Dunloring, someplace around Dunloring.
Yeah, but you know what? We live in Virginia. I live in Virginia. You live in
Maryland.
You're right off the D.C. border there.
I'm right on the river.
And so, the stadium now, I have no problem getting to FedEx Field. That's not a difficult drive for me on a Sunday morning. And I live in Virginia. If the stadium was in D.C., of course, we used to travel down to RFK, and if it's in Virginia, who knows? Maybe it's out here in Loudoun County or Fairfax County or someplace. But I know it'll be a beautiful spot when they build it. It's going to be beautiful.
They I think in the same report, they indicated that there is a site that has been selected or a potential site in Virginia, And I'm wondering, would it be inside or outside the Beltway? You probably don't have any of that.
Don't know. I know they had talked about the
do
old,
they have? Are there multiple sites that are possible? Because they did say that that Virginia has a potential site. It's a matter of pulling the trigger on it.
I mean, some people think too far out is not good, depending on how far outside the Beltway it is built. Nowadays, with the roads that they have and the metro that comes out here all the way out to Loudoun, I mean, really anybody can get around. And I hear people talk about, and again, they're going to say, well, you do the games, you have a parking pass, all this. But when I leave, I'm leaving a little bit after the game, and there's traffic. But I've never been to an NFL stadium. I worked 20 years covering NFL football, as you know.
Right.
And I've never left an NFL stadium and didn't have a traffic jam. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Riding with the team, you get a police escort on a bus, you don't really care. So I think, I do believe that when the stadium is built, wherever it is built, it will be the Taj Mahal of stadiums. I think it's going to be unbelievable, off the hook. People are going to love it.
I'm wondering, too, the big part of this was, like you said, talking about legalizing the gambling. I got to believe there's different, levels of gaming licenses.
Right.
Say like the one over in Maryland down there, down close to the water, the MGM, where the casino right down the street.
Right.
For the most part. Now they can have, blackjack, whatever. Basically, it's a casino.
But it's not sports betting yet.
I'm sorry?
It's not sports betting.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In other words, you would be allowed at the stadium, the kind of gambling that they're talking about, to wager on football games, baseball, whatever may be going on at the time.
I think it's different
kind
kinds
of a sport.
I think it's different kinds. I think you
wouldn't be able to go up there. Let's say the game, is out of hand. You want to go up and play blackjack. There's not going to be a casino.
It might be nice. I don't know, but
we'll never keep you in front of the microphone.
But the thing is, you got your phone, man. I mean, this is where the mobile betting, I think, is obviously the thing of the future. But also, people like to go to a betting parlor, I guess, a sports book. I know. When I used to go to Vegas for the fights, I love to go into Caesars where there's all these lights. Every line in the world is up there in front of you. You've got all these games going on. It's if you're a sports fan and you like wagering, that's like the perfect scenario. But, the phone is the most convenient thing ever. So you'll be able to pull up a bet on your phone and follow your bet. I guess there's prop bets, who's going to win the coin toss. You could just do it all day long on your phone. I guess the connection you have might impact how fast you get your bets in, but a lot of that has to still be sorted out. But you're not putting that genie back in the bottle. There's a lot of money to be made by all the different jurisdictions, and anybody. Obviously, you see what's going on in D.C. That has not. We saw that licenses were given out. I don't know how long, but it hasn't been expedited. I don't even know if sports gambling is happening yet in D.C. I don't think so.
I don't know. I have
no
idea.
But I know it's coming because they've done the diligence. But when it hits, man, I mean, people are into it. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you've watched the XFL games. Don't they have something going on with that is on your screen and that type of stuff?
I don't know if there's money involved.
Oh, okay.
But
I thought there was, but then again, like I said,
I have not watched much XFL football. To be perfectly honest with you, I have
watched zero. So
it's not very compelling. The quarterbacks in the XFL are just Josh Johnson is the best quarterback in the XFL.
That makes sense.
And Josh Johnson will get a job, I believe, as a result of showing his wares in the XFL, because you don't have a lot of quarterbacks out there. NFL teams, some carry 3. There really aren't enough.
Yeah.
Well,
and as we're seeing the way that, usually what salaries are paid to people usually kind of mandates the importance of whatever it is they're doing. And like I said, top 10 teams in the NFL, they pay their quarterbacks $30 million. That tells you.
That's the value of that.
Because I don't know what the next guy's got to be below. I would dare say there's not a position player other than quarterback that makes over $20 million a year.
I don't think so, but I think you're looking at one day, very soon, maybe tomorrow, $100 million guarantee for a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk Cousins almost got that.
I think your guy down in Dallas might end up getting that.
And he might end up with that.
He might end up getting it.
Well, listen, Larry, we'd be remiss if we didn't just take one comment about this virus that's sweeping the country that I'm still scratching my head over, and I'm almost kind of like one of those guys that wants to lead with his chin and say, hey, I'll take my chances. Because do you realize in the last several months since this was reported, I think there's been, in the less than 100,000, but I think I want to say 30 to 40,000 people, I think is what they're saying, have died from the coronavirus. I think that's what they're saying. Now, I'm going back. But they also say at the same time that over 300,000 have died from the flu.
Right.
I'm confused. And now you have the World Health Organization saying that this is not yet there, but it's close to becoming a pandemic. And I don't get it, because on the one hand, it doesn't seem like, 80% of the people who contract it die. It doesn't seem like the death rate is that high. My question is, and I haven't heard anybody ever answer this, is it they're afraid because this particular strain, as viruses do, will mutate into something
I haven't heard that.
Come on, Dr. Larry.
I haven't heard it.
Tell.
I listened to Dr. Oz and Dr. Drew. I saw them both on television, and both of them make comments how the flu is the flu. This is similar to the flu. Do not panic. Common sense approach. Wash your hands. Use good hygiene. Try not to touch a lot of people.
Right.
Try not to exchange fluids with a lot of people, and you're going to be okay, unless you have some underlying health concerns. And if you do, they say, better be careful. So that's the same thing they tell everybody when it's a heavy flu season. Say, well, you know what? If you're, got underlying health concerns, you want to make sure that you follow some of these basic rules. So that's what I'm doing. I think that's what the Redskins are going to do. Make sure you wash your hands. Make sure,
Don't touch your face.
Don't touch your face, and don't, it's kind of common sense stuff, John. And, in your body's immune system, I believe, if you're strong and you don't have underlying health issues, as I've heard, if you get it, you're going to get sick, and in a few days, you're going to feel better. But it's got a lot of people panicked, and I'm in your camp. I don't want to panic. I don't think it's time to panic.
No. And to a certain extent, it makes you wonder, and I have to say this because I spoke with him last night, T-Cat, and he says this is created by the media. They're creating the frenzy because if they do, it's money for them. The people want to watch. And you know what?
I don't know. I mean, part of me says that.
Huh?
Fake news.
Well,
not fake, but this is a real virus. I mean, people have tested positive.
How can they compare? But I've heard it compared to that, which obviously neither one of us was around when it happened. But the Spanish flu of 1918, which killed somewhere between 50 and 100 million people worldwide. I mean, to me, I might get a little panicky if I thought that was the case. I mean, is that where we're going with this? I don't know. I hate to leave you on that, but I guess we will until next week. If Larry and I both survive, we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
When you scratch and you don't win.
100K Scratcher Replay.
Now through March 31st, enter any non-winning Virginia Lottery scratcher for a chance to win one of 2 daily $500 prizes or the $10,000 grand prize. Visit VALottery.com/replay for details. Didn't win on the scratcher? Replay it with 100K Scratcher Replay.
100K Scratcher Replay.
The odds of winning a prize depend on the number of entries received.
The time for adventure is now. And if you want a car as exciting as your lifestyle, then it has to be an all-wheel drive Honda SUV. With more features, the CR-V has standard Honda sensing, more room for friends, the Pilot has seating for 8, more comfort, the HR-V has available heated seats, and more rugged. The Passport is built for adventure with ample cargo space and hidden storage compartments. So no matter when adventure calls, your Honda will always be ready. See your local Honda dealer today.
Dear customer service, I can always count on Novak. My power is always on, my payments always go through, and Novak actually cares about the community they serve.
Dear Novak, your electric costs are reasonable. Some electricity is from alternative sources, and cost reductions are passed along during the year. Thanks.
Novak, power you can count on.
Darryl Green here. I'm used to winning teams, and I know the value of physical health, but financial health is also important. Having the right bank on your team is critical to a winning formula. Businesses need positive cash flow to succeed. That's why I recommend Main Street Bank for your business banking. I'm a founding director of Main Street Bank, and my formula for success on the field is the same off the field. Work hard and surround yourself with great teammates. Trust me, you want Main Street Bank on your team. Go to mstreetbank.com. We bank where you breathe. Member FDIC.